what is happening in the, I think everybody can hear me. What is happening in the current scenario is that a lot of mistrust is also developing between the patients and the doctors. And people expect perfection. And probably we are leading people to believe that everything will be fine, which is not always true. Because you see, health, I think, is 75% from the patient side and only 25% from the doctor's side. Because it's like, you take a car to the mechanic. It depends upon how bad it is, how old it is, how many times its engine has already seized, and then you expect to put it back to and make it a new car. And if you just equate that and bring it on to the human body, which is changing every minute, then you can understand how difficult it can be. Therefore, I think preventive and a positive thinking, all those things go a long way. So 75% over my years of experience, I've realized that the patients contribute a lot to their own health, to their own recovery, and to everything else that goes with it. Last wala karo to. I can talk about menopause, I can talk about young girls, but we'll just take women's health last mein hoga. Let's open that one, which is an old one, but never mind. This is only a sort of a preventive which we always take with all our patients, etc., so that they. This I told you this is an old presentation. Previously I was director and head at Jaipur Golden Hospital. This was our labor ward. Next. Okay, ye wali slide. Let's open this slide. No, the previous one. No, the one with the circular diagram. No. This one, yes. Okay, this is a woman's life cycle. Here you have a young couple and a young girl delivering a baby. She goes on to become a young girl, grows up, becomes a teenager, takes up a job, meets a man, gets married. They have another child of their own. Then they are bringing up the other child. They are so tired bringing up their own child and the job and profession. They begin to get old, and before they realize, they say life is almost coming to an end. And they have had no time to really look after themselves. And then there are many other disorders which set in. And a lot of people talk a lot about menopause. But menopause is nothing but a simple process of aging, which occurs with men and women. But because we are biologically and otherwise different, our response is different. But if we are developing problems, it is a culmination of all those habits which have started, which this mother has given this one. And from here to this, what she eats now is going to impact her health here. So it is important, it is never very early to start, inculcating good habits. And that is, if you have a good habit starting from here, your menopause and the rest of it is going to be much better, and you are going to be generally healthy. Could I have the next slide, please? Isko pura show up kar dijiye. So when should you actually have a health checkup? When the baby is born, most of the places, they are usually handed over to the pediatrician. The baby is delivered, handed over to the pediatrician for a checkup, does a checkup, everything. If the baby is fine, and then recommends the immunization and other things and whatever is required. And then, but soon after the pediatricians say out hone ke baad, the women never visit a doctor. And what happens after the pediatrician has seen them and they have grown up, then suddenly we find there is a big gap. Before, the female, or even the young boys for that matter, hardly ever visit a doctor unless they fall ill. And that period, generally when you are young and healthy, you are usually considered to be healthy. But we always tell, because I'm going to be devoting myself more to women, but many things apply to the men also, or to the male sex also. So you should actually take your daughter to a doctor before they have their periods. You may have your own hang-ups and your beliefs and everything that, why you should, you may be passing on. Some of those concepts or thoughts may not be correct scientifically. So if you visit a doctor, you get the correct view. Also, this is the time when they develop hormonal changes. And mind you, hormonal changes do not occur only hormonal changes, that there are physical changes. All hormonal changes are associated with emotional and mental changes. And that is why you see when the girl or the boy, they are growing, when they have reached adolescence, they are not only changing physically, but the hormones are playing haywire with them, and there are so many emotional and mental changes occur. And there is where the parents have to be mature, the family has to be mature as to how to handle. The physical things can be handled, but the emotional and mental well-being is much, much more important, and that needs to be handled very, very carefully. Otherwise, this is going to be the outcome, how they are going to behave in society and how everything else is going to occur. Before marriage, again, supposing you've been them to see, taken them before menarche to see whether they are anemic, they are getting a good diet, good physical activity. These days, physical activity has gone for a toss. It's only the digital age has really played havoc with our health. Forget the eyes or the headache and whatever you have, but generally, what children spent playing around and getting physical activity is gone. And so mothers have the responsibility. Why I say mothers, of course fathers are also there. We may say that why this, gender differentiation or gender bias, that mothers are more responsible. We must accept certain facts. If you don't accept facts, you'll spend your life quarreling. Or you'll spend your life, not being able to do anything. But just get on with it and do it. So you are spending most of the time with the children. If you are not, and if your husband, then you discuss it out so that he can take an active interest in it. So it's not that because there is a gender bias or anything, but this is how society is usually still working. So it is incumbent upon the parents to make the children get up and take some exercise. The more active that they are in their adolescence, in their childhood, etc., the stronger are their bones going to be even in old age and even in menopause. And the muscles have to be strong. Because you see, what are bones? You take a skeleton, you've made it stand up, and you just, it's connected by wires. Supposing you have a sample skeleton before you. You remove all those wires, what happens? It becomes a heap of bones. So what is it that keeps keeps me in the erect position, keeps everybody in the erect position? It is your muscles. So you need good tone of the muscles all the time, and it requires good ligaments, etc., and a good diet. So all these things have to be taken. Then, this is, since it is women, you should see before planning a pregnancy, because women usually, or the families, the moment the women get pregnant, they go to a doctor, ki chalo doctor. Some people, believe me, even in this day and age, they say, first 3 months, don't tell anybody you're pregnant. We will go to a doctor once 3 months are over. And then they say, baby ki growth nahi, and then tears and everything. You see, there are many serious complications which occur in early pregnancy, which need to be identified as soon. But the ideal thing is, go and see a doctor before your pregnancy. If you are epileptic or you are on some medication, that needs to be modified. If you are developing thyroid or anything, that needs to be corrected, because all these can lead to complications in the pregnancy, miscarriage, infertility, etc., etc. So the common example which I give to all my patients and their relatives, I keep telling them, whether they have come for a different consultation, I make this statement so that they can act as ambassadors of this information to their family at large. That even a gardener, before he plants anything, prepares the soil. And here we are trying to plant a human specimen, one of the most complicated specimens, with no preparation whatsoever. With all kinds of haphazard diet and, talk about any medication, kabhi sir darad ki, kabhi uski, they're literally playing with life, and especially the young girls of today, and young boys, of course. And if the young boy's diet is not good, the semen quality is not going to be good. And those are most of the reasons why you may have abnormalities in the babies as well. So it is important that your health should be, because the cells which will enter the cycle of producing the baby, which will enter the baby, they have a lifespan of 3 months. So today, if you have a viral illness, that is going to be reflected in the sperms and the ova 3 months later. So you'll say, उस समय तो कुछ भी नहीं था, हमको तो बिल्कुल ठीक ठाक थे, and that is why you need to be careful. When people say दोस्त लोगों से मिलो, you can catch infections and things like. And then of course you go and see them early in pregnancy, and then follow what the advice is. But each step is very, very important. Next. After pregnancy, people, delivery ho gayi, they forget everything. Well, whatever you may have lost, your blood, your calcium, your vitamin D, you are feeding the baby, that needs to be replenished so that your body recovers again before you go on to the next pregnancy. Annual checkups from 35 years onwards. They say the concept is, nahin, everything is fine. And many time we see people come to us when they are 50 or 60, when they develop problems, and then they say, no, I was fine since my childbirth, I've never been to a gynecologist. And that is why, you see, we miss many things and diseases are picked up when they are advanced or late. People keep asking us, for example, that's the most frightening word which anybody is scared of hearing, cancer. They'll say, what are the symptoms of cancer? Symptoms of cancer, by the time you develop symptoms, the illness is already beyond cure. So there should be no symptoms if you go for annual checkups. There may be still cases which may be missed, which are in the early phase. But if you keep on, if it is not picked up this year, it may be picked up by next year or whatever. So you should go for regular checkups. Minarchy mein, what do you have to tell them? Give them education, what it is, the correct education. And also people talk about we should have sex education in school. And there's a lot of hullabaloo. I don't think people need to teach children. You don't teach animals or anyone. Everybody knows. These days, you know, it's open everywhere. People can know about, you know, you don't have to give them sex education. What should it entail? It should entail how to handle your sexuality. How to cope with all those hormonal changes and emotional changes and mental changes that are occurring within you. So that you can still stay on the whatever path you have to be. Advice about hygiene, diet, exercise, and all other questions can be answered in a more scientific way. So it is very, very important that those girls need to be seen by a doctor. It used to be considered a stigma taking a young girl to a doctor in the early days. About when I was in medical school, you know, if a young girl visited a gynecologist, the only assumption was that she must have got pregnant out of wedlock. That was the understanding. So people were scared. Even if they had problems, they did not actually go to a gynecologist or take their young girls. The mothers would come and report whatever had to be done. Dawai de dijiye. Nahi uska ye nahi doctor sahab test karayenge to people will say what's wrong with her that she is getting all these tests done. But things have thankfully changed. We are more accepting. Then before marriage, you clear your doubts and when to plan a pregnancy. This is so important because it really, really bugs us gynecologists. We don't like doing terminations and I pill and empty pill. It should not be taken very lightly because they have their own complications. It should only be taken under the supervision of a doctor. If anybody is taking an empty pill from chemist se le liya aur wo ho gaya, and just in case your pregnancy wasn't in the uterine cavity, it was in the tube or an ectopic pregnancy, you have a full blown, you've put your life at risk because your tube